And welcome back. I have to share a story with you. I think you really love it. Let's pull it up and we'll get right to it. So this series is entitled, There's Always a Story. One of my gifts as a National Science Foundation awardee was volumes 1 to 4, Mathematicians Are People Too. I used those books repeatedly. I wanted my students to share in the wonderful knowledge of math as discovered by these famous mathematicians. This is an image of the book I used most of all, published by Dale Seymour. My copy is somewhat worn. I encourage parents to purchase copies for their children or read some of the stories to them. Experiment with some of the theories and dig into the origins of those processes done at school. Why is math storytelling not part of our everyday curriculum? And onto my story. It's about the stay in bed scholar. Renee Descartes, who was born in 1596, died in 1650, was a French philosopher, a mathematician, and a scientist. He learned so much at a young age, yet he always wanted to sleep just a little more in the mornings. Descartes' most used contribution to math by the children in our schools is the Cartesian plane, commonly known as the coordinate plane. It is used by students from 3rd grade and beyond. In some textbooks, his name is used with other famous mathematicians among the word problems. It amazes me that no explanation, not even a single one in passing, is given about such an important person. I digress. Let's stick to the story. As a young boy, Descartes went away to school with other boys who slept in a dormitory. Imagine that, really young. The place was run by priests. The story quotes Father Charlet, who did not want anyone waking Renee up before he was ready. Descartes often rolled over for some extra winks in the morning. Renee behaved like many children today. Descartes' friends teased him because he hated exercise and was a bit scrawny. This young boy started at La Flèche, a French school, at the age of 9. He was a sickly child, but Father Charlet, who liked him, thought that weak children might grow stronger if they stayed in bed longer. Renee suspected that Father Charlet was testing some theory and experimenting with him. Lying in bed suited Renee just fine. He didn't sleep that much, but lay thinking most of the time. During the first 5 years at La Flèche, he studied grammar and literature like most students at school today. However, back in that time, students studied philosophy, theology, and mathematics. What a curriculum. He was an excellent scholar and actually graduated with a law degree. He did not like law, though. He traveled around the world observing other customs and learning about others. He was a voracious reader. And like some of you, me, would rather read a good book than go to a party. One morning, his friends Claude and Albert were eager to share what happened at the party they attended the night before. Descartes was not listening. He stared into space. Then he said, Claude, Albert, I had the strangest dream. Claude laughed, poked Albert in the ribs, and said, was she pretty? Their friend did not even smile. He began to explain his dream, which had 3 parts. He could not find words to fully explain the dream. A little frustrated, he thought they would not understand him, but he was sure that in his dream, he saw the key to the secrets of nature. Everything in nature, in all of the sciences, is connected by mathematical links. Both Claude and Albert were confused and did not stay to listen to any more of this unusual dream. Renee Descartes recorded his dream in his journal. Many people think that the beginnings of analytic geometry started with this dream. One of those mornings when he lazed in bed, he saw a fly crawl back and forth on the ceiling. Descartes wondered how he could explain the position of the fly to others. He reasoned that if one knew the distance of the fly from two adjacent walls, its position could be described precisely. Once the position could be identified by coordinates, an algebraic path could be defined. How many students today know that the simple graph paper on which they plot points, draw linear or quadratic functions, and do so many things at school depended on the scholarship of this master of mathematics? We do our students a disservice when we deny them an opportunity to expand their knowledge. Descartes encountered some ruffians once on a sea journey to the Frisian Islands. He should have expected to meet some misfits on a sea journey when he was all dressed in fancy clothes and a large hat with feathers. Because he knew many languages, he was able to decipher the plan to rob him and throw him overboard. Imagine the finely dressed Descartes whipping out a sword and holding it to the neck of one of his assailants. Eventually, ready for a quiet life, he settled down in Holland, where he worked on his various theories in math. His most important work was known as Discourse and Method, which was considered a landmark in the history of philosophy. He knew math. He wrote his first book on philosophy. What a genius. The work was published in 1637. An appendix to that writing was Geometry, in which he explained the marriage of algebra and geometry. The use of the variables A, B, and C were established in that book. What a joy it would be to spend time with students simply exploring the work of famous mathematicians. Descartes was well known. One day, Queen Christina of Sweden invited him to come to Sweden to be a special tutor and advisor. By that time, he had made important contributions to physics, to chemistry, physiology, and psychology. The ambitious queen envisioned a school of sciences that would be the best in the world. Descartes was flattered, but declined the invitation. He preferred Holland, where he could stay in bed as long as he wished. The queen, only 19 years old, spoiled and not used to being denied, sent an admiral to persuade Descartes to change his mind. He found it impossible to refuse. So he went to Sweden. He did not enjoy Sweden. It was cold and often wet. His delicate stamina succumbed and he caught pneumonia and never recovered. He died on February 11th, 1650. He was buried in a small Catholic cemetery in Stockholm. 17 years after his death, the French government arranged to have his body re-entombed in Paris at a place called the Pantheon. And I have a little picture of the Pantheon. The French Pantheon was modeled after the Pantheon in Greece. The word Pantheon means honor all gods. He was rather elevated. They thought him a god. So they placed him in this honorable place. And I do have a picture of the coordinate plane here, so you can see the one we used so often in our schools today. The x-axis is in red, it's always horizontal. The y-axis is in blue. I have not done a lot of explanations with the coordinate plane. That'll bore you to death, maybe, I don't know. But this gives you an idea of what Descartes thought when he saw that fly walking on the walls, on the ceiling, and imagined trying to give that fly an exact position on this plane, position between two adjacent walls, and that would be your Y wall and your X wall. Your X wall would be the horizontal, and the Y is the vertical. Streets and towns are organized after the coordinate plane. So his work is evident all over the place in real life. I hope you follow Descartes and many other mathematicians.